I'm Palma Accardi, and you're watching Tidal Flooding Talk, which is a weekly show dedicated to the challenges of coastal flooding.
I'm meteorologist Dan Skeldon. Thanks so much for joining us. We are here every week at the Irish Pub. We invite you to come down. Some of you guys have been watching and came down and joining us live tonight. 7 o'clock every Tuesday night at the Irish Pub in Atlantic City. Palm and I always honored to be joined by guests more educated than we are, and this gentleman beside me definitely fits that bill. Dr. Ed Mahaney, former mayor of Cape May, Mahaney Consulting, and a strategic planner with the New Jersey Coastal Coalition. And Ed, it's great to have you here and joining us where we're going to talk tidal flooding for the next 30 minutes.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's great to be here with you on the show, and especially here at the Irish Pub. It's really great sponsorship.
Yeah, it is, and you can come on down. You can watch the show live here from the Irish Pub. Join us for beers and some great food afterwards. So you can watch the show live, or of course you can watch it right here on Facebook on your live stream every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and then these will be posted and archived as well. All brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, which our strategic planner knows, and Palm and I know, work for you, for coastal residents and vacationers, free of charge. We're a 501c3, and we're here to spread awareness, to educate, to save you money, and to hopefully, in the worst case scenario, save lives, save property, and hopefully we don't have that worst case scenario. We don't for the next week, guys. Beautiful weather, it's summery weather, no tidal flooding. So let's get started, and as always, Palma with the first question.
Well, Ed, first off, I think we'd like to know a little bit more about your background and how coastal flooding has influenced your life both as a resident and a city mayor.
Thank you, Palma. And, I was born and raised in the Philadelphia area, and I have 3 degrees from Temple University, and I've been a 45-year career educator in New Jersey and Pennsylvania at the public and private school level, at the university level, and with the State Department. But I moved to New Jersey permanently after having a summer home in 1985, and I had the experience within 2 months of a major coastal storm. So I learned quickly what I was going to be dealing with as a year-round resident. Also, starting in 1991, I started into my career in public service at the request of the City Council, and I've served 21 years on the planning board and 16 and a half as mayor of the city of Cape May, including 9.5 years consecutively at the end of 2016. So from my perspective as a resident and as an elected official, what I found is that the one major force that we need to contend with in South Jersey, as opposed to other parts of the country, is the coastal storm. And this can have a detrimental effect on lives and property, and it can prevent our towns from succeeding. And as you know, 70% of most towns' economy is tourism related in South Jersey, especially in Atlantic and Cape May counties. The other 30% is made up of unique factors in your towns. In Cape May, the other 30% is made up of the Coast Guard base and also commercial fishing. But what we really have to make certain is that the towns all along the coast, including those that have back bays and have riverines, have sustainability and resiliency so that they can continue to be a viable economic revenue projector for the people who live here, and also be resilient and being able to bump right back after a storm and not have a 2 or 3 year downtime. And we saw that downtime with North Jersey after Sandy, and we saw it in Cape May after the storm of 62.
So you moved here in 85, so that was the year Gloria struck, right?
Right.
Hurricane Gloria. 91, you started in politics. We had a perfect storm.
Right.
In October, we had the bad December 92 nor'easter. So you've been through nor'easters, you've been through coastal storms. We named nor'easters now, you've been through Jonas.
Right.
And you know, too, that, we experience tidal flooding when there isn't a storm sometimes. I mean, it
Right.
can be a beautiful sunny day. If the moon is right and the winds are right, we can experience tidal flooding even then. So I guess what can, as a mayor, from your political perspective, and as a resident, what is the biggest problem communicating our message, with the Coastal Coalition? Like what message do we have to get out to residents about tidal flooding?
I think most mayors will agree with me, and Palma and I discussed this before the program. In my mind, the 3 steps you have to take are planning, preparation, and community involvement. And that's with all aspects of flood prevention, be it the coastal storm that everybody dreads, the excessive rainfall that we get, and then the nuisance flooding, which you have in all the towns in South Jersey. But what we need to do with the public is to get them involved, not just at a heightened moment of emotionalism when the storm is coming or hitting us. We need to get them educated in several factors. One is what they can do on their property to maintain their home and prevent any damage to it or any loss of life. The second factor is to let them know what they can do as a community in terms of being educated to support the government in hazard mitigation projects. And thirdly, they need to know the warning signs and what to do when there is an emergency coming in terms of evacuation, going to shelters, helping their neighbors, and that's very essential.
Okay.
Now, during your time as mayor, what were some of the things that you had to do to prepare your community for a coastal flooding event?
I think the aspect that we took, Palma, was when I came back to office in 2008 at the request of the public, we immediately started to redo all of our planning documents, our master plan, our COA plan, our flood management plan. We did a Sustainable Jersey plan, and we also did an overall sustainability plan for the city. And in that, we incorporated floodplain management. And as doing that, we were able to come up with a comprehensive plan for the city that assured that the major problems that we'd have to contend with over the next 30 years were all identified and were being worked on. So we did a Getting to Resilience, a coastal vulnerability study, and most importantly, we intertwined our long-term capital improvement program with that plan so that we knew what projects we were going to do. So we did hazard mitigation plans. With the county, we put pump stations in, and our outfall pipes we extended and consolidated so they'd be operational. Secondly, we were currently involved in an ongoing program with the Army Corps of Engineers on a feasibility study that's going to be funded to put riprap along our back bay area to prevent flooding and also along our ocean front to raise the seawall to prevent flooding, which is our one Achilles heel. In the eastern part of the city, the water comes in and floods the middle part of the city. So we've taken those 2 steps. We've spent a lot of time on upgrading our emergency management services, and we've moved towards alternative energy and doing energy saving measures so that we'll be able to operate on alternative power when we do have an outage, even a regular outage and a brownout with the electric or so forth. But we'd be able to operate in an emergency. So that's what you do with your public. But most of all, what we've done with our public is brought them in and had meetings with FEMA and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to have them learn about their property. What zone is it in? What does that mean? Do you need flood insurance or don't you need flood insurance? And my personal viewpoint is, if you live in one of the seaside resorts, just buy the flood insurance. If you get a major storm, you're probably going to be affected. And then what you do to make your house more secure and floodproof. And we've done the same thing with the businesses. And most of them have joined on, especially, as Dan knows, from the more frequent storms we're having, the more intensity of them, and the fact that it's become a very recognized source of problem.
Do you think, because the storms I mentioned earlier, Gloria, the perfect storm in 91, the December 92, in the 90s, we were pretty lucky after that. In the 2000s, we were pretty lucky. No major storms.
Right.
And, of course, Cape May and the whole Jersey Shore, just the population continues to, blossom and explode, if you will, which is all good. But, have the current storms helped or hurt, spreading awareness? Jonas and Sandy and Irene, has that kind of helped has it woken people up saying, all right, we're not immune here in South Jersey or all of New Jersey. We can get storms. Like, what do you think the most recent flurry of storms has done? I mean, has it made your job easier? Has it made, our job easier? And the Coastal Coalition was born out of Sandy, but what do you think has been the impact and the effect of these recent storms?
I think particularly Sandy and Jonas in Atlantic and Cape May County has raised public awareness. The problem is the further in time we get from those two storms, the more complacency ekes back in. It's especially helpful for public involvement in those towns that were severely hit. For instance, in Jonas, North Wildwood, which didn't expect to have Back Bay flooding, had tremendous flooding. So there's still a heightened awareness 2 years later in that town about taking flood prevention measures. And that's helping local government work with the public and the federal and state governments to get projects installed. They're doing almost $10 million worth of work right now. But the real key, I think, is to keep the interest of the people by bringing up publicly the projects you're thinking of doing, having the public involved in the planning of those projects, keeping the information out among the public, emphasizing this at council meetings, at town meetings, and spreading the information. As Palm and I talk, getting that booklet from FEMA is very nice, but very few people are going to read it. You need to give people a short burst of information that they can recognize right away, they can assimilate, and they can act on.
Now, what are some ways that flood mitigation has changed in our area since Superstorm Sandy that you've experienced?
I think, first of all, most towns now have gone to a more sophisticated IT-related system for monitoring their town. Okay. Secondly, I think most towns now, and I know we have in Cape May, now have computerized maps of their entire town with all their infrastructure on it and all their flood zones. This is a system of overlays, continuous overlays, that have all your utilities, especially your water and sewer, your blocks, your lots, your floodplains, your zoning, and that is useful not only at the time of the emergency, but it's useful when you redo your master plan to see where you might want to change your zoning and maybe tighten up zoning so you're not having development in floodplain areas. It's also, I think the other factor is that there is far more use of the websites now and to inform the public of what's going on in terms of long-term mitigation planning, and also when you have a flood or a major prolonged rainstorm or nuisance flooding coming up, how you interact with your public. And I think that's why the webcam and the high water initiative of the Coastal Coalition is a major duo of projects that will really help the towns communicate with their public. But that's what I see. You also see and I'm involved in this as a representative from the Coastal Coalition, meetings among the Army Corps of Engineers and the New Jersey DEP, as well as the DEPs up and down the eastern coast, to try to have better collaboration on projects. There's only going to be so much money they're going to have available for mitigation projects and flood proofing, and they want to make sure that they're maximizing each project and they're getting better cooperation and they're easing the system, and they're also sharing benefits and products to minimize the cost of each project. A great example is on the back bays, which were totally relegated to obscurity until we started getting storms like Jonas. And now, we need to do more dredging back there. If we can take the dredge remains and residue from one town that needs back bay dredging and put it across the harbor in another town on their salt marshes that have eroded, we solve two problems. Or do thin layer spraying. So that's what we're looking at now. And the Army Corps and the DEP are very happy to look at this, because the number of problems they're having to deal with flood prevention on the oceans, the back bays, the riverines, is far surpassing the amount of money they project they're going to have in future budgets.
I think you're in a unique perspective. You know, with a mayor of one municipality, and now you're involved in the Coastal Coalition, which is, you know, as its name suggests, a coalition of multiple municipalities. You know, what's the advantage of the Coastal Coalition? Linking all these different communities. I mean, we say this is always brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, but you know, it's nice to have a coalition strategic plan around. I guess the short question is, you know, what's the strategy? What's our strategy, and why are we here as the Coastal Coalition?
As a charter member of the Coastal Coalition, when it was the Atlantic Cape May County Coalition, and now still being with the coalition as a strategic planner, I can tell you the mission has evolved. Originally, our purpose was on a regional basis to have the mayors and their key staff members work together to share resources and equipment and application fees and knowledge when we were recovering from Sandy. Now it's evolved into a regional approach for resilience. So how do we continue to sustain our communities, and how do we prepare them to deal with future storms and to survive and rebound from them very quickly? So our key mission now is to work together to come up with strategies that we can do on a regional basis and hopefully a statewide basis based on the interest from other counties in joining us, to be a sounding board for the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the relevant colleges that have joined our coalition, to come up with engineering models, strategies, communications programs for the public, a well-rounded approach that actually makes certain that our flood maps are accurate as we go forward, that gives us the best strategies for eliminating flood problems, that allows us to interact with our public and make them educated in what they're dealing with, be they permanent or part-time residents. And then finally, that we're doing this in a united fashion so that not every town has to spend as much money on this initiative. We can share resources. And I think that multi-jurisdictional PPI, about which we're going to have the press conference tomorrow, is a great example of that. You've got 13 towns coming together that are really going to be able to put out a higher quality and a higher volume and much more progressive educational programs using multimedia platforms for their public than any one town could do together.
And ultimately, what people love to hear is that's going to save people money.
Right, and it is.
Which is, what any resident wants to hear. I mean, any way they could save money by, doing very little, with us doing the work, with the towns doing the work, and the towns coming together, it's win-win for everybody.
And the beauty of the Coastal Coalition is it's voluntary. And yet we have 20 very active members just in Atlantic and Cape May County and Cumberland County.
And we're expanding north.
We're expanding
right up the coast.
Yes, hopefully to Ocean and Monmouth counties, which have shown tremendous interest. And then the other factor is there's no fee, cost, or even unassociated cost to the towns that participate.
Right.
They just need to send somebody once a month for about a 2-hour meeting. And that's what's beautiful about this. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. But the benefits of this are individual projects that we're also able to get for individual grants we've written, projects we've gotten approved for individual towns, plus the fact that through the strategies we're using, we're also getting for those towns who are in the Community Rating Service and the National Flood Insurance Program additional discounts on the homeowners and the businesses' flood insurance policies. And, Sea Isle City just went to a Class 3, which means their people are getting a 35% discount on their flood insurance policy. Most of the towns who are in the Coastal Coalition are on a 3, 4, 5, or 6. The least of those is 20%. And that's going to mean a lot, especially as the NFIP moves from a subsidized to a totally actuarial funding basis. And it's going to offset some of those dramatic increases, especially the second homeowners will be experiencing.
And you did mention outreach as being a major problem. getting this information out there for people, and I think that's what the New Jersey Coastal Coalition is trying to do. I mean, we created a website, Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube as well, so just to help people understand what's going on and ways that they could, protect their properties.
And I agree, and all the media you just mentioned, Palma, are media that everyone is gravitating to. The days of the newspapers and the radio stations, TV stations are still out there to be recognized, but especially with the younger generation, they're going to these new platforms. And it's very important to get them involved at an earlier age so they understand the peril to these very exquisite environmental assets that we all enjoy along the shore.
Yeah, because even if you're not a homeowner, you still may live here and you drive through flooded waters. It's not safe if you don't understand it.
Right. And I think a lot of people haven't understood it over the years. And I think the one factor that's been really improved over the years, especially in the early 2000s, was the gravitation towards establishing and funding and providing the resources for the local and county emergency management offices and having them tied in to the state emergency management office and the state police. That system worked extremely well during Sandy and Jonas, and it's been a major improvement that I've recognized over the years. You no longer feel in a municipality as if you're on your own and you've been relegated to obscurity and it's you against the world. You feel that you have a lot of planning behind you, you have additional resources you can call on, and there's constant contact with the county, the other towns in the county, and the state. And in my experience, anytime we needed anything from 2010 with that blizzard of 2010 in February up to today, the city of Cape May always received immediately.
And we are very fortunate. I've dealt with them. I know you've dealt with them. You have great local emergency managers,
right?
And we have great county ones. I know Atlantic and Cape May counties, specifically who I've worked with, Vince and Marty, are just amazing at what they do. And it's great to have that network from the municipal level, local, county, and state. And unfortunately, we've had practice of this over the last 10 years, and we don't want any more practice, but with each of these storms, we've learned something.
Yes.
The blizzard taught us something, Jonas taught us something, and you really can't implement plans unless you do have practice. So these storms do a few good things. They get us better prepared for the next one, and they wake us up to our vulnerability here in South Jersey. It's a beautiful place to live, but you're at sea level, and you're gonna get storms. Barrier islands are meant to be battered by storms, so they're a way of life. So like you said, preparedness, education, awareness, everything the Coastal Coalition is trying to do, everything municipalities and counties are trying to do, all for a good cause.
Well, one of the things I noticed, Dan, was just by sheer happenstance, the Cape May County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which also entails 16 municipal plans, was due to be done right after Sandy. And that was a real eye-opener for everybody because people realized the importance of that plan. And for once, the people in the room, the coordinators, the department heads from each of the municipalities, and the county personnel working with Tetra Tech were all acknowledging that this isn't a document we're going to do and put in a drawer. For the first time, everybody acknowledged this is a living document. Okay, let's really think about what we need, what worked for us in the past. Let's not overlook some factors that we should have. It's not just the occasional major storm. It's also the incessant rainstorms of 2 or 3 days, the nuisance flooding, that type of thing that we need to address. And so we put together really good plans. And I know Tetra Tech was very surprised how diligent everybody was. We didn't have to keep after certain towns, as we always do, to get theirs finished because the whole county has to be approved at once. But that worked out well. And I see it at the local emergency management, where the councils and the governing bodies are willing to allocate more money because they realize that this is a life and death situation. And so that's really important. And I think that's where, Palma, to go back to what you and I were discussing, is where you get your community involved. You let them know how they can help. And when it is they need to just evacuate to a location, we give them. And that works out well. And I think the last two storms, Sandy and Jonas, had that effect on people. The old, I'm going down with the ship, I was born and raised here, I'm going to go down with it. That sort of changed a little when people realized the severity of those storms and what could happen.
Great point. Any last-minute questions for
I don't
Dr.
think
Mahaney?
so. I do want to let our Facebook viewers know, if you're watching live, you can send in your comments or questions. I don't know, do we have any last-minute Facebook questions?
Not so much. A lot of hellos, a lot of respect for Dr. Ed, a class act. You're a smart, creative, and trustworthy person. I think we all agree with that, and we're lucky to have you. And Jersey Coastal Coalition, Tidal Flooding Talk, 7 p.m. every Tuesday from the Irish Pub. Different guests, and just hopefully great, education, great talking points, and you can always watch live here on Facebook.
And to say thank you, the Irish Pub and the New Jersey Coastal Coalition would like to give you an Irish Pub t-shirt.
Okay, thank you very much, Palma.
Thank you.
And thank you for being partners with me on the Coastal Coalition.
All right.
All of us working together will make a difference.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll see you back here next Tuesday. Do we have a confirmed guest? I should know. You're always more prepared than I am.
It will be at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, and we will let you know on the guest
All right.
later on.
All right. See, I put Palm on the spot there. Thanks, guys, for joining in.
Sorry.
And we'll see you back here soon.